Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Phil Corbell. I'm the Director of Advocacy for the Carbon Literacy Project, and I'm one of the co-founders of the project as well. Thanks for joining us for this session. I hope you found the previous sessions useful. Part of the great strengths of this project, quite apart from its subject material and the content, are the people. Time and time again, as a small charity doing something sort of huge, we come back to the strength of our network of practitioners and the ability for them, the willingness to share with people that are earlier in their carbon literacy journey. And that's very much the theme of what we're going to be talking about between now and 12:15. Where we'll be introducing you to 4 existing local authority practitioners who'll be able to unwrap some of their experience of delivering carbon literacy where they are. We'll also be opening up for questions. There'll be time for that at the end, but also please feel free to put questions into the Q&A button. For those of you less familiar with Zoom, that's at the bottom in your menu bar. If you put this into Q&A, it enables colleagues to answer questions as we go, or indeed save them for the Q&A at the end. So I hope that that is sufficient to get ourselves rolling. What I'm first going to do is ask each member of our panel to introduce themselves, tell us a bit about who they are, what they do, and just a little bit of a scene setter. So I guess we should start with Deborah from Manchester. Deborah, if you could start your camera and join us.
There you go. Hopefully you can see and hear me now.
Absolutely. Deborah, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit of your carbon literacy story.
So I am Deborah Conrad. I am the carbon literacy trainer for Manchester City Council. So this is my day job, what I do 100% of my time now. We run the training though in Manchester on a kind of train the trainer model. So I actually started my carbon literacy journey about 4 or 5 years ago when I went on one of the trainings. I went on it because I knew I didn't actually know very much about carbon literacy and I needed to find out some more. The training for me was such an eye-opener. I started going along, shadowing, helping out. Since then, I ended up taking more and more of the sessions over. I've done some work with the university. I've got a trainer qualification now. And 2 years ago, nearly, it became my full day job. So not only doing the training physically 3 or 4 times a week, but running the project as well for the City Council, which has really helped as well, you know, being able to provide consistent training, you know, on a regular weekly, week in, week out basis.
Fantastic. And Manchester deserves the crown as the first council to get underway with this, been pivotal to our growth. That story is, you've gone through various iterations of you use Manchester Metropolitan University to help get things underway, then have gone round through a process of evolution into this, I'm trying to think of a better, homegrown, you know, using your own resources to build and sustain your carbon literacy training, and that's worked well.
Yeah, we have our own training course that's an approved training course rather than using your template one. Although a lot of the stuff that is in your template is in our approved training because we worked with the MMU to help develop some of those slides. So it would look probably quite similar to people if they were using your template one. But yeah, incredibly helpful working with the MMU and getting them on board with us at that early stage to be able to shape this. And then we've been able to bring it more in-house by making my post, as I say, you know, my day-to-day job really now, which has provided a lot more consistency for us, both with the overview of the project and also with knowing that there's going to be somebody there to regularly train.
Finally, I mean, we'll bring you into the panel as a whole, but what you said just earlier, you came to this not knowing much about this. I frame that as a strength in terms of how you frame this for colleagues. Am I right in that instinct?
Absolutely. I think because one of the things I do when I start the training is go around and introduce everybody on the training. And I ask them where they think they sit on a kind of carbon literacy scale. Would they say they've got a low, medium, or a high knowledge? And then I always share the fact that actually, when I was like them and went on the training, I had a very low knowledge. In fact, to be honest, please all feel free to laugh. My knowledge was so bad, I actually thought maybe it rains a lot in Manchester. Maybe it'll be a good thing, climate change, because we'll have some nicer sunny weather. That's
You're
how
not alone.
bad my knowledge was. So I always share that with my learners because I think it makes them feel reassured that even if they are starting from a very low base, you could get to, where I am now, actually, teaching this training on a daily basis.
It's a fantastic message to get across. Sharing your own learning journey from whatever its starting point is with colleagues is part of the strength of our peer-to-peer approach as well. So Deborah, thank you very much for that introduction. We'll bring you back in to the panel. If we could go to Louise. Louise, if you could introduce yourself, if we can bring you up here. I'll ask a colleague to press the spotlight button or whatever needs to be done in terms of this. There we go, Louise. If you could introduce yourself, tell us who you are, where you are, and a bit about your carbon literacy experience, please.
Thanks, Phil. I'm Louise Downey, and I'm Senior Sustainability Advisor at West Sussex County Council. I'm part of a small team of sustainability professionals at the council. And I'm not a qualified trainer. I do have a background in sustainability, and our carbon literacy journey started probably about a year ago. So we're fairly new to delivering carbon literacy training. And it's really driven by trying to fulfill the commitments of our new climate change strategy, which was published last year. And we really wanted to commit to transforming how we work as an organisation and really to develop that low carbon culture across the organisation. Carbon literacy was identified as an opportunity for that. And then we piloted carbon literacy training through an external organisation. So APSI delivered training to a group of our staff, including our executive director, one of our executive directors. And it was really, really well received. The training went down really, really well with all of the people who were involved. And there were some good actions that came out of the back of that. But one of the highlights from that was that actually the training would be even better if it was really specific to West Sussex. The data and examples were really specific to West Sussex, and it was delivered at West Sussex by people who work for West Sussex, so that it really had that relevance to people in their everyday jobs. And so we wanted to bring it in-house. We did. We used the toolkit to help us do that and really keep that momentum going. And we started running our in-house courses in August this year. So we ran a course in August that was delivered by myself. And then we did 2 more in September, 2 in October, and we've done 1 this month so far. So we've really kind of ramped it up really quickly. We trained nearly 100 staff in that time. And the feedback has been fantastic, really, really good. We've trained different levels of authority and different job roles across the organisation and different knowledge levels as well. All in the same room, all having discussions, coming to breakout rooms, and just really the participation's been great and feedback's been fantastic. So it's been a really positive journey so far.
That's a really interesting point about a mixed group. This is one of the consistent themes we have way beyond public sector. Who do you train? Who do you put in the room? And the benefits on both sides of, is it one team who end up developing their action plan for the team for that floor or whatever, or do you use it as an opportunity for that rare opportunity for cross-fertilization between disciplines and departments? You're obviously veering towards the latter.
Yeah, we found that to be a really powerful way, at least in the beginning, to start people on the journey and get people to understand that carbon literacy is important across the organisation, that it's not for specific teams only, and that actually everyone has the opportunity to deliver actions and deliver carbon reductions in their work. Everyone from a finance assistant to the elected member for climate change and environment. There's opportunities everywhere, and it might be that an action that somebody can identify is not huge, but actually that can then lead on to other actions, and the discussions that they might have with their colleagues then leads on to even more action. So we found it really powerful to get different people in the room.
So you've got impact and popularity as well, from what you're saying, in terms of
Yeah.
that feedback from colleagues.
Yeah.
Great. No, really good. Louise, we'll ask you to join the panel in a minute. Thank you very much. Nicola has joined us, but minus her camera, I gather. But this is not going to be a barrier to us, Nicola. Could you just hop up and introduce yourself, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Phil. No problem. So my name is Nicola, or Nikki Webb. I'm the Climate Emergency Project Manager for North Somerset Council. We're a unitary authority in West England. I joined Somerset in early 2020, having previously worked in national and regional emissions reporting for just over a decade. My previous work, one of the big projects I worked on in my previous job was the local authority CO2 reporting that Bayes does every year. So I created or produced that data set every year. And I also, towards the end of that previous work, worked with local authorities who had declared a climate emergency, helping them to understand their emissions and putting together action plans. So while I felt like I was very versed in all of this, I did a lot of work on telling people what needed doing, but actually the experience of making those things happen is a very different kettle of fish.
And this, so you had focused on the tools and the reporting side, and then flip side of the coin, you started to utilize this engagement tool. So
Yes.
Tell us about that realizing the need for that engagement, and how it started to roll with yourselves.
Okay, well, I suppose from my perspective, I had always come at it from a very scientific perspective. You see the sort of models that you see that come from the Committee on Climate Change. You need this many heat pumps, you need this many people getting out of their cars, you need this many electrified vehicles, and that's all very well. But then when you actually talk to people on the ground who are making those things happen, you realise what the difficulties are, what the changes that need to be made politically and socially, I suppose, as well. So I had a bit of a realisation of, first of all, it's not all about the science. A lot of it is about psychology and talking to people, getting those, understanding the problems that people are having. But also that local authorities have really massive jobs to do in every sort of sphere of what's going on in the community. We've got people who are running libraries and people who are building, maintaining roads and cycle paths, and social workers, and every single one of them has a job to do, and every single one of them can do that job in a greener way. And it felt, just sort of a top-down directive that says you must do this in a zero carbon way just doesn't work. So actually sort of finding a way of talking to everybody has made a massive difference. I'm not sure if I really answered your question there, Phil.
Oh, you did. No, absolutely. And the journey yourself started small, using your own training capacity, growing it yourself.
So like Louise said, we started, our very first one was an external trainer. So we had Rachel Coxcoon, who previously worked for the Centre for Sustainable Energy, came in and ran it. I think it was a bit of a pilot actually of the senior officers councillors training. And so she ran a training directed at our councillors, but we also sneaked in a couple of our chief exec and a few of her senior leadership team. So we did that one single training first of all, but followed it up about a week later with starting the local authority toolkit, and that's all been done by me so far.
Fantastic. Nicola, we'll let you go and bring you back to the panel in a bit.
Thank you.
I don't know if you want to try to log in again to see if we can get a better signal, maybe see you. Your audio is slightly crackly, but I think people are, I'm hearing most of what you're saying, so that should be okay.
Thank you.
So last but by no means least, Alex, if you could join us, that would be great. So Alex, tell us where you're from, what you do, and a bit about your carbon literacy story, please.
Fantastic, thanks, Phil. Yeah, so my name is Alex Ebern, and I am the Sustainability Officer at Winchester City Council, and I'm also the Carbon Literacy Training Programme Lead at the Council as well. Carbon literacy training itself is definitely one of my favourite parts of my job. I'm passionate about carbon literacy training, and so I'm really delighted to have been invited on behalf of Winchester City Council to speak today on the panel. In terms of our journey with carbon literacy training, we declared a climate emergency in 2019. Shortly after declaring that emergency, we released a carbon neutrality action plan, and within that plan, one of the aims was to introduce a staff training module on sustainability and climate action, so that all staff understood the role that they play in helping the council to meet the target. At the time, we weren't actually aware of carbon literacy training itself, but when we did a scope, we saw how amazing it was as an initiative. We saw, the environmental case for it, the financial, social case, and what stood out for carbon literacy training itself is how action focused it is. We have a lot of training sessions which give you sort of an educational focus, where they're telling you to be aware of certain things, give you some of that knowledge, but this one commits people to actions as well, which is definitely one of the benefits of the training. We started our training in September 2020 when we received formal approval from the Carbon Literacy Project to actually run our own training course in-house. Following approval, we were then one of the first councils to pilot the local authorities generic staff toolkit, and that was piloted at the time by Naomi Wise, who was our previous sustainability officer. And if you're interested, on the Carbon Literacy Project website, there is a testimonial video with you, Phil, and Naomi, just talking through our experiences of piloting that back in September. Since then, following the pilot, I put together a business justification case in about November that year, basically advocating to make carbon literacy our council-wide training programme. And since then, we now use carbon literacy training as the primary means of educating our officers and members now as well about sustainability and climate change, and getting them involved in all of that. I actually joined Winchester City Council in September 2020, so right as we started to develop carbon literacy training across the council. I joined on the National Graduate Development Programme, and as soon as I saw they're doing carbon literacy training, I thought, how excellent is that? So I got myself involved in one of the very early ones, and since then I've been heavily involved in the delivery of it. So right now our training is delivered in-house by myself as the lead trainer. Also my colleague Shamila, who is the programme manager, she supports a lot of the training sessions, and we also now have a growing team of carbon literacy staff volunteers who help with our training as well. And each training session is usually led by two of us, two facilitators, to a group of about 10 to 20 staff. And we do that currently virtually over Teams, over 2 half days. And we do two training at the moment. We do the officer training, and we also do elected member training, which we started doing in July.
I want to hear more about the interesting challenge of getting councillors to behave. Oh dear, I didn't mean to be disrespectful, but sorry, because I know there are members on this call as well. But because of course we have a specific councillor facing course as well. But there's an important thing you mentioned before, putting the business case together. It's one thing for someone to go, hey, this is a great thing, an officer or a member within a council, getting it across the line to go at sufficient scale. What do you think is the key to that, getting that across the line?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would definitely recommend to people who are going through that journey is to look at the Making the Case resource that you've made available on the Carbon Literacy Project. It starts to discuss from best practice and experience from other local authorities a bit about how to go about demonstrating the financial case, demonstrating the social case, some things about the Carbon Literacy Project that you might want to include when building in your own business justification case for carbon literacy training within your local authorities. I think one of the first things to do is just get started, really. Experience carbon literacy training, attend one of the sort of train the trainer courses and see if it's something that you want to do. And then, yeah, try and put together a business case and frame, how useful training is to achieve some of your goals in terms of the climate emergency.
Brilliant. Alex, thanks very much. If I could ask now the rest of the panel to be ready. We're going to go into panel mode now, but before we do, just to emphasize, yes, I'll do my very best to have time for Q&A at the end, but throw in questions into the Q&A button at the bottom there. It's just a slightly better way of capturing questions than the chat function as well. It enables colleagues to respond as we go. And I can't stress enough, there's no such thing as a daft question. This is an information webinar. So please come in with as basic or as complicated a question as you wish. So first, this is a baseline thing. Yep. So part of our rationale is that carbon literacy needs to be just a workplace competence for all, to sit alongside health and safety, diversity, safeguarding, GDPR. You know, it just should sit there. Getting that message across. Why should councils take up carbon literacy? I mean, less for carbon literacy as a specific as why should climate action training be taken on board as a core competence for everyone in a council. Who'd like to pick that up? Just jump in, panel, if you feel like that.
And I'll jump in first if
Please,
if
Louise.
you want to. It's Louise from West Sussex. I mean, from our point of view, we feel that, well, firstly, our council plan, which has just been renewed and refreshed, states that climate change underpins everything in our council plan. So the delivery of all of our services and everything that we deliver to residents and the way that we progress and develop the organisation is underpinned by responding to climate change and delivering net zero. So to state that in our council plan without equipping our officers with the ability to deliver on that, understand it and deliver on it wouldn't be right. So that's for us why it's essential that this training is offered to all staff. It's not yet mandatory for all staff, but it is offered out to all staff, and we feel that's essential in order to equip our officers with the ability to take action and also to enable them to not feel hopeless and helpless and alone in being expected to respond to something, but without knowing that other people are doing it, or perhaps understanding how other teams are responding.
Yeah, so you were explicit. Climate change is underpinning all policy and planning decisions in the broader sense across the council. Therefore, it is a new universal competence. ... That lands well. Any other aspects of this from the rest of the panel, Alex, Deborah, Nikki, about why this is so essential as part of the skills base for a council?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would definitely agree with the things that Louise has said, and we have it in the City Council's corporate plan. Climate change is now #1 priority for the City Council, and you can't have a priority like that written in the corporate plan when sometimes people almost don't even understand what it means. You know, other things in the corporate plan would be very basic things, you know, like we listen and understand what people want. Everybody would know what that means. If you're talking about climate change or carbon literacy as part of a corporate plan, it's one of those almost like technical terms that people might see it, but not really understand how it will feed into their day-to-day life and their jobs, and all the discussions that we have as part of our training, you know, when we're doing the small group work, is very interesting hearing how people suddenly kind of the penny drops almost like, yes, I can do stuff at home, you know, I can make some changes, but actually, yeah, I can see how this does feed into a lot of my jobs too. You know, we've got people working in highways that have been on the training and said, I've never really thought about doing active travel as part of my highways plan. I've only ever thought like car centric. And now that you've talked about active travel, I'm actually going to put into my future designs, how can we make it safe for pedestrians? How can we think about bikes? And they genuinely had never thought of that before they came on the training. And those kind of little examples really show to me how important it is that we embed this for everybody, and make it an essential training. We don't want to call it a mandatory training either, because mandatory training I always think has connotations of, you know, like you've got to do first aid training,
GDPR,
GDPR, which everybody loved doing, so we're kind of saying it's an essential training, a required training for people to try and get around that idea of it, you know, being one that you have to do, even though we do actually want all the staff to do it.
And don't underestimate the power of the cascade. from this training. One of our all-time favourites happens to come from Manchester City Council, an arts officer. Took the training and then was involved in the finance and procurement deal for a large arts centre. And into that, into the terms of that, she put, you will train all your staff. The arts centre is called Home in Manchester. And they then became a centre for carbon literacy in the arts sector, but also geographically where they're based. It's seriously, I was sat at their terrace meeting some people from a large energy company, the terrace on a square where they're situated. And I was able to say, well, there's Auto Trader who are carbon literate, there's WSP, basically to point around this square, and all of those significant corporates had picked up their carbon literacy from Home, who had taken it from the council. And earlier today, we were talking about our civil service toolkit and to the first carbon literate embassy in Zagreb, who'd come across it through an European arts project that Manchester had led. So I'm just, these things cascade out. And whether it's your highways person going, no, penny drop on active travel, or these, and it's large and small and it spreads out. So thanks very much for that perspective, Deborah. So the why, I think, is quite well landed there. Let's get down to the nuts and bolts a bit, if we may. Preparing to deliver training. Alex, you were talking about being relatively new to the council. Tell us a bit about, leading up to your first delivery of carbon literacy. How did that go for you?
Yeah, of course. So I was able to attend a carbon literacy training session at the council first, just to give myself a flavour about how it runs and some of the skills from it. But it's quite a nerve-wracking experience, actually, when you come to be on the other end and you're now the trainer tasked with actually delivering some of the training. So what I did to try and prepare myself for it really was just to go through all the resources on the website. There's lots of really helpful things along with the toolkits to give you some guidance about how you can actually go about presenting this in the best way possible, and really familiarize myself with those as well. And then I just got stuck in, really. It's just a case of getting going into your first session and giving it a good go. And I mean, I've learned so much now after delivering about 10 training sessions. Every session, new things come up that I learn, and it's all about tailoring it after every session to make sure, I learn from each of them and make sure I'm delivering as good as possible. And then it starts to move over to helping others as well to go through that transition, as we've had all new trainers coming on board.
So you knew your sustainability stuff coming in to the council. How would you rate your training experience and training capacity before you started?
It was limited. I knew it was something that I really wanted to do, and it was something that would have massive benefits in terms of our council and bringing all staff on board. But my training capacity was actually limited. I come in as a graduate. This is my first role, and I never had any training experience. So it's just a learning curve, really.
Yeah.
But I think having the support of colleagues and having the support of the Carbon Literacy Project and the resources that are available, it really does make the transition is quite an interesting and sort of quite a helpful transition there.
But doable. This is the great thing. You've come in with very little experience on training, even if you knew some of the content. I think that's a core message, and it's part of the reason why we don't we don't insist on people qualifying as a carbon literacy trainer. We have those qualifications. We don't insist on it. We always say that if you sort of know your climate stuff, preferably if you're carbon literate yourself, with a bit of training or presentation experience, certainly with the toolkit manual and the detail that comes with that, you're pretty much good to go. And that seems to be the experience coming back. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, don't let it limit you. I think this really is for anyone.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Part of the richness of this sharing that we can do is that there are so many stories. Yeah, I'd like each of our panel, and maybe we'll start with Nikki actually in West Somerset, to think about some of those key stories that can help others to pick up carbon literacy or develop the carbon literacy in their councils. Things that have happened to you in your training. Nikki?
Oh, there's so many now. I've been running it for over a year, and there's so many different stories. I think one of the things, so what Alex was just saying was about that when you first start. And I, when I first started, I was a little bit nervous. I had done training before, but all of my training was on, you know, things that I was really comfy with, and I generally only ran them once, and I designed the course myself. So I was a bit nervous about delivering somebody else's course, I guess. So I asked our community learning team at the council to be my guinea pigs. So they run courses all the time, they design courses, they bring in trainers, that's their bag. So I did the course for them and asked for them for really, you know, blunt responses. I wanted good feedback that told me how to do it better. And their response was just like, oh my God, you've opened my eyes. And it was completely different. And they are now these huge advocates for carbon literacy, and they are building it into their courses as well. So little sneaky bits, like they have a cooking on a budget course, and that is now cooking on a budget, thinking about where your food comes from, reducing food waste. And they've really sort of brought in these little sort of sneaky teachings into all of their courses. So that was really exciting. I think one of the bigger ones for us as well was our health visitors. So one of the first courses that I ran last year, somebody from public health joined, and then about a week later he contacted me and said, we're going out to tender for our health visitors. I want to put something in about climate, but I don't know what. So we sat down and we looked at what the health visitors do, what the contract actually includes. And between us, we found ways of increasing the climate awareness of people, and thinking actually our health visitors are going into people's houses every day of the week, and they're driving around the county, and they are, you know, there were so many opportunities. And actually the company that won that contract in the end have taken it really on board. They're not running carbon literacy yet, but I think that might come. But they contacted me last week about installing a Ecosia on their browsers. So that was like a little step for them at least.
Great. So multiple stories there. So again, let's Deborah, if we can come to you. So some great examples of good and bad things, actually, you know, things that we can learn by that have happened in your training sessions.
Okay. To be honest, I don't think there's many bad ones. Everybody that has been on the training, I've even had quotes back from people that say, I really hate going on training courses, and yours was the best training course that I have ever been on. Because it is such an eye-opener often for people, you know, and I really love training those people that literally come on and say, I don't know anything about this at all. And they go away and start thinking about things differently. And some of the conversations you then, you know, have with them as they're progressing and learning. And I love it when people get back in touch with me and tell me things that they've done that they would never have dreamed of doing before being on the training. I had the gentleman on my course a couple of months ago, and between the two sessions, because we run one session, then they have like a little bit of a time at home, and then they come on the second session. Between sessions, he emailed me and said his printer had stopped working, and normally he would just kind of go, oh great, I'll buy a new printer, you know. He was like, no, that's really wasteful, I need to look into this a bit more. And he went online, watched some YouTube videos about how to fix his printer, and he fixed his printer so that he didn't need to go and buy a new piece of tech. And I just thought, yeah, that's why I'm doing this. Actually, that has really made a difference to him, and that's just one example of it. I mean, one of the other things that I really love with the training is when we train our partner organisations too, because as you had that great example about home and how it can spread out from there. We had somebody on the training from Manchester Active, which do our sport side for the City Council, but they don't directly work for the City Council anymore. She was like, oh my God, this is the most amazing training ever. I want everybody on from Manchester Active now to come on the training. And even when they now have new starters on, she's like, first thing that they're doing is coming on your training. And they've built it into you know, their whole plan now. We've had GLL on, who run our leisure centres, so that they also, you know, understand and can start building things into their own plans for their own buildings that actually relate back to the carbon literacy training.
And that really illustrates another key point. What we're going to do in a minute, I'm going to start going to the questions that have come up on Q&A and spread them around the panel, but leave everyone with this thought. Obviously, the initial focus of carbon literacy is how to work things down in the into the operations of the council. Your power to influence. There's that key slide in the training about the 4% of a typical area that is directly attributable to the council, and the 40% that can be influenced strongly by the council. So again, we come back to cascade. You've illustrated some wonderful cascades into there, and those organizations getting it into their supply chain, communicating with their publics. The potential for this, again, as a catalyst, is absolutely massive, and actually offering this out as a capacity to train trainers in other sectors, other organizations, is absolutely huge, and we'll be telling more and more of those stories. We're going to go a little bit chaotic now, in that we're going to take some of the questions from the Q&A. We'll start from Anonymous, thank you Anonymous, about carbon literate organizations. And what's the value of being a carbon literate organization for a council? Who both, Deborah, we've just been speaking to you, Nikki at West Somerset, you are a carbon literate organization. Why?
Yeah, it's North Somerset though, Phil, sorry.
Oh no, oh sorry, this is bad.
It's all right, there's too many Somerset. Yeah, so we are a carbon literate organisation. I think we were the first English carbon literate organisation outside of Manchester. I know Manchester win. So yeah, it has been really helpful for us. I think there is a certain amount of pride to be able to say, yeah, this is something that we're really passionate about. We're really keen to make sure everybody knows about it. But also it helps us, like you were saying, the sort of cascade model. If it's a visible badge that we can wear and someone else can go, what's that? What do you mean by this? But I think that's a really useful badge to have.
Great. Deborah, as a carbon literate organisation at Manchester City Council, what do you think the value of that is for the City Council? Right, I'm thinking maybe Deborah didn't pick up the question. That's fine. We can move on to another question. Cara, who follows up on the pledges? Nikki, you wanted to come in on that one, so we'll come back to you as we've just spoken to you. We'll come back to that question in a minute.
Sorry, did I miss a bit there? I'm sorry, I had to dash to the front door. The dogs were barking their head off.
We are so used to this. Sorry, Deborah,
I know, the joy of Zoom. I'm sorry.
Exactly. Deborah, we're just asking about the value of carbon literate organisation status for a council.
Yes, we're silver now in the City Council and are going for gold. I think it's really important, less so for the staff. The staff is more that eye-opening stuff I was talking about before. But I think it's very important for us with the councillors and as a profile for the City Council to show we mean what we're talking about. You know, we've committed to training people, but by actually becoming an affiliated organisation with yourselves, it actually shows we're doing what we've said we would do.
A bit of walking the walk, and it's a badge. The interesting thing about silver, I won't go into detail of the different levels, bronze to platinum, but at silver, it obliges an organisation to have a formal process by which carbon literate actions are supported. So that it's that embedding piece, which is really important. Let's just pick out another question. Thanks very much, Deborah. Yeah, there's a really nuts and boltsy type thing from Robin Lees. Thanks for joining us, Robin. Experience of using e-learning to conduct the core knowledge sections of the training, which of course is an option that's available to you. Do any of our panel use e-learning is a question. No, I think is the response there. Look, we'll come back to you on that. We'll try. It is an option. The day's worth part, you can chunk as you wish. I remember at Salford City Council, they took their leadership cohort of 40, the top 40 there, through e-learning for the first half, which is generally the factual bit. And then they got together very much focused on what are we going to do now we've learned this. So it's a half and half approach, which went quite well. There's always a danger, which we had at one council, which I won't name, where elected members were asked to do e-learning. They had to do the e-learning for the second part, the live session, to make sense. And it was patchy take up. So that's whilst e-learning can be very effective, you need to make sure that people have done it before progressing onward, which of course can be done. But we can, Robin, we could always try to access some of that experience there. So other questions? Yeah, I hope that we've, yeah, Nikki, you've got a couple of, Nikki's answering the questions about the live and virtual part of things. Libby, you're asking the question about completing pledge forms. This is another good nuts and bolts thing. So at the end of all carbon literacy training, people have to fill out their pledges. Is absolutely essential to getting the forms. And there was some difficulty being had there about getting that completed. Do any of the panel have experience of that, and what tips would they offer?
Yeah, I can come in on that one, Phil.
Thanks, Alex.
I think it is something that we've had experience as well, in terms of getting people to actually then complete their action plans after the training. And what we've done to try and help with that is, there is currently time within the sessions to get people to start working on the toolkits. But sometimes when you've got all the content you're trying to get through, it can sometimes be put a bit on the back burner. What we've done is just extended the course slightly by an extra half an hour on the days, just to give people that time in the session to actually work on their action plan. And we found that then the take up of the amount of people doing the action plans is so much greater. Just having everyone in the room where they can ask any questions, talk to people in breakout rooms as well sometimes, and discuss their ideas, really gets them started on it. People are much more likely, from our experience, to actually complete it once they've made a start in the session than just doing it all outside of training, because everyone has busy schedules. And then the other thing we also do is we started to put in check-in sessions or action planning workshops outside of those training sessions. So maybe within the week or two after the actual training, we'll schedule one in, and we'll encourage people to come across who haven't yet submitted their action plan, just to get some further guidance from us as trainers. And again, a bit more time out of their work schedule to focus just on their action plan. And we found that those two actions have started now to get the numbers up for the amount of people who've completed their action plans.
Thanks for that. I'm going, Alex, if you can hang on for a moment, because we've got something about training counsellors, training members in a second. I'll just deal with another question myself. Better to target training at certain teams rather than mandating training for everyone. Really, it's down to you. What's going to make the impact? Yep. What's a meaningful low carbon culture? I think you ask yourself that. You have to get SMT in there. You absolutely do, or cabinet, and preferably both. Top down and empower existing champions. Top down, bottom up is absolutely vital. Procurement, absolutely vital. So you can target things, but you'll also, if you have training capacity available, you'll find that it becomes very popular and people will want to get trained. So no one size fits all answer there. But Alex, Cara's asking, is it better to have staff deliver training to members, or members to be trained by an external trainer? And I'll just slightly expand that. We found a very similar question for training leadership as well. What's your experience?
From our experience, it's been officer-led training that we've done. That's the only thing we have done. We haven't had an external trainer in, and we've actually found from experience and feedback from the members that they've really liked having the officer viewpoint coming in. Coming from Winchester City Council, working on these things and leading within the sustainability team, hearing from officers was something that members really like to hear. And also another thing to add on that is it wasn't just us as officers delivering it. What the members really liked is having other members deliver it to them as well. So what we did before the training session is invited along our cabinet member for the climate emergency to take part in one of our staff training sessions to get certified. And then we worked outside of the training session to give us some tools to support us with the training delivery. When we then came to delivering the training for elected members, we had then the cabinet lead for climate emergency on board to deliver half the training with us. And that was really great as well, because we automatically had that sort of, the respect and the position there that the cabinet member had to, that was in place. That was really good.
Yeah, lead members for climate are absolutely essential, whether you can get them in the room, as it were, or even pre-recorded. And again, essential parts, get the leader to introduce the whole thing, to from the very first moment go, we're doing this because. Again, I remember early days when with a pioneer council where that pre-communication, in that case for mandated training, was not very clear, and you can imagine a whole bunch of learners going, I've got work to do, what am I doing here, type thing, and you have to waste time and energy getting across that during the session. So getting pre-communication is really important too. Thanks for that, Alex. Let's see what else we have got by way of questions here. Great. We've got that on the follow-up. Many thanks. Let's just see. Several sessions. Yeah, the timing of sessions. Louise, how have you timed your sessions in West Sussex? Have you done it, half days? I presume it's all been virtual as well so far?
We've done all our sessions virtually so far. The most people who can work from home are still working from home across the council. And so actually, yes, we've done all of our sessions virtually so far on Microsoft Teams. And that's actually worked really well for us. We've done all of the sessions as half-day sessions. And so they run either from 9:30 till 1 or from 1:30 till 5. And we try and what we've done so far is have both sessions in the same week. But what we're looking at doing ongoing is actually enabling people to spread that a little bit more. For people who can't perhaps make two sessions in 1 week, they can perhaps do 2 sessions over 2 weeks, or even a slightly longer period than that. But we want to try and encourage people to do both sessions, so complete the full day of training within perhaps certainly no more than a month, because then that keeps the continuity and the momentum excuse me, going. But then also we've got the sort of follow-up afterwards of enabling them to complete their action plan over a couple of weeks as well. So they've got time in the session to do about 20-25 minutes in the session to actually fill in their action plan, ask questions about how they identify actions and so on. But then some time afterwards where there's an opportunity for them to reflect, to ask questions, or set up a meeting one-to-one just to chat through actions that might be appropriate. So we've kind of gone for that model so far. What we're looking at potentially is also developing some more flexible options as well, either having the modules as separate sessions, so 4 sessions, and also potentially running a whole day session for certain groups, because we have quite a lot of people on different work schedules. So what we want to do is try to be inclusive so that everybody is able to make
there's an absolutely, all councils have an incredibly diverse workforce, and I particularly recall before we really got going with councils, with social landlords who have been pioneers for carbon literacy, again with an incredibly diverse workforce, and indeed with some members of the workforce facing issues around IT literacy, access to IT, and I particularly remember one organisation actually ran it with IT skills boosting as well in an IT suite. So they've been mentored in their computer use at the same time, and you had that feeling of collaboration. A day's face-to-face can be really potent. If you look on the front page of carbonliteracy.com at the bottom, there's that vox pop from the BBC learners who did a whole day, and taking people through that whole learning journey at once is actually very, very potent if you can. Don't do it on Teams on Zoom. Everyone will get a headache, as you know. But the other point you were making there, Louise, was, yeah, space it out, but not too much. You need to have a sense of momentum. Yeah, fit it in with people as they, yeah, they've got lives and other work to do, but try to keep up that sense of momentum. So thanks very much for that, Louise. I'm trying to see what else we have by way of questions, and please also if you have comments to make panel that we feel, as we're aiming to end by 12:15, please do chip in with other comments. We are going to be asking you to leave people with top tips from your experience as well. You're getting a feeling already, if you're watching, that there's an incredible body of practice that we can tap into. Core question here from Cara. Thanks for all the questions, by the way, Cara. Really, really, really useful. Nicola, Nikki, North Somerset, you wanted to come in and answer that question on who follows up on pledges to quantify the actions and carbon reduction commitments from doing the training. Core question, Nikki.
Yeah, well, I actually pressed the wrong button. I was going to type an answer, but that's fine. I can say it out loud now. I couldn't work out how to stop that. But yeah, so we follow up in terms of reviewing the pledges and then sending them off to the Carbon Literacy Project to certify. So that is not always a fun job, because there's quite a big range in the responses that you get. Some people will send an enormous essay about what they're going to do and how great it's going to be, and others will say, I don't know, there was someone the other day, I'm going to print less, and you go, oh, were you listening? But yeah, so there's a huge range. So what we have been doing, so we will follow up and we will check, and we'll go back to people if we think that their responses are not really significant enough, or they haven't really got it, and check, were you not listening? Do you, what was the reason that your response is not brilliant? And then afterwards, we've got a bit of a compilation that we've made of kind of good or general pledges that people have made. So we have a kind of a big list that says, a lot of people have made a pledge like this, or we've had a few that are standout ones, and give a few examples. And we have a team at the council for anyone who's done their form, so that people can share that a little bit. It's a bit sporadic, the team, in terms of how sometimes we get loads of people chatting and sometimes it goes very quiet for a long time. But there is that resource there for people to look at and think, well, if I've done that pledge, is there anything else I can do next? And they can look at what other people have said they'll do.
There's also a balance to be struck between, in terms of those actions about, there's some really good stuff there, but how do you take ownership of it by designing your own as well? I should say, from our point of view, we're often asked, what does this result in, particularly in terms of footprint reduction? If any of you have an amazing research budget, can we have it, please? Because we'd love to be able to quantify it, but it's quite a big job. We have this estimate from Jacobs Engineering of a 5 to 15% energy saving in an average workplace for programs such as carbon literacy or like carbon literacy, if it's supported appropriately in the aftermath. That sounds like a reasonable guesstimate to me, 5 to 15% for a motivated workforce. But this is a culture shift project. It's about mobilizing, getting, as the panel have so demonstrated, getting everyone on board and contributing to what is, as we know, a really massive task, and we know that lands well. So in terms of those outcomes, it's often much more qualitative than quantitative, which is not to say it doesn't have that sort of impact either. Anonymous, you're asking about the length of the CLO, the Carbon Literate Organization accreditation. It can be pretty quick. It really depends. If we know you're going to be applying, let us know, we can put it into the pipeline. If you've got all your ducks in a row, it could take a week to turn that round. The work is more at your end to make sure that all the criteria are fulfilled. I think we are going to aim to end at 15:15. There will be a recording of this, of course, and there's loads more information on carbonliteracy.com. But I'd like to ask each of the panel to quickly have a closing comment of advice for people wanting to take up carbon literacy. And in random order selection, let's start with Deborah.
Oh, my video, come on. I might have to give you my top tip without a video.
You
no, there you go.
There
you go. It's come on. Yeah,
marvelous.
technology's great, isn't it? Yeah.
Love it.
My top tip, and I always tell everybody on their training this, is that we are all on a journey. I don't think anybody is an expert in climate change or carbon literacy, because there's always new stuff happening, and you can start your journey from a really simple thing, from switching your light off as you leave the room. But once you build that into your regular journey, then do another step, and then another step, and another step. I never went on this training 4 years ago and thought I would stop giving up bacon sandwiches. And at the weekend, I cooked bacon for my husband and I had bacon. And I see that as a huge part of my journey. And that's where I think everybody is. You can take a step, but build that into your life and take another step and another step.
And it is a journey and it keeps going. Deborah, thank you very much. Alex, a closing comment, please.
Yeah, my tips would vary really on what stage you're at in terms of your journey along here. If you're just getting started, my top tip would be to try and sign yourself up for one of the taster sessions, or take part in another authorities training, just to see what it's all about and see if it's something that you would like to do. If you're a bit further along your journey, my advice would just be to keep going, to persist, and keep trying to improve your delivery, and make a noise about it as well, so your staff know what's happening and people in the local community do as well. And I definitely focus around the bronze, silver, and gold and platinum CLO process. We found from our experience it's a great way of getting buy-in, and it's a great way of building momentum around the carbon literacy program.
Thank you very much. That's brilliant. Thanks, Alex. Nikki, closing words of advice?
I think I'd probably echo what Alex and Deborah have said, actually.
Okay.
So it's just do it is kind of the basics, but yeah, it's really valuable. I think Alex said at the beginning that it was one of his favorite parts of his job, and I definitely would agree with that. Once I had stopped wanting to cry every time I delivered it. No, that's not, it wasn't quite as bad as that, but there were a few emotional moments of right at the beginning, but it is so valuable. It's just absolutely do it, and like Alex said, you can go on somebody else's course and find out more about it.
Thanks very much, Nikki. Finally, and last but no means least, as I say, Louise, your last word of advice.
I think completely echoing what the others have said, definitely. And again, the sort of just do it. But if you're feeling nervous about starting, the best thing to do is just to put together a group of friendly people in your organisation to try it out with, and just do it that way. And then you can sort out the technical aspects, and you don't have to worry too much about the constructive criticism you might get back, and you can get a feel for doing the slides and how long it all takes, and making sure you hit the timings and all of those aspects that mean the next time you deliver it, it's an even more positive experience, and that positive experience builds. It's kind of like a journey as a trainer as well. And then the other aspect is for the participants, it's the start of their journey potentially, and it is the start. They begin to develop their knowledge and their understanding. They begin to talk to people about it and developing their first set of actions. But then actually that again is something that we'd want to follow up with them on. How are they getting on? Have they developed more actions? Are they talking to more people? And so it's the beginning of everyone's journey, and it's a really positive one. And everybody who's done the training has said it's the best training they've done. Yeah. Actually, it's really empowered them. So just do it.
Brilliant. Louise, thank you very much for that and your contributions today. Alex from Winchester Council, Deborah from Manchester Council, and Nicola Webb from North Somerset Council. I'll get that bit right. Thank you very much. Just to say, there's loads more carrying on at about 12:30. We're just going to have more of an open networking session. So please come back for that. There's lots more to find out about this thing that we've got that is spreading like a thing that's spreading really fast. And you can't use the word wildfire anymore. That would be completely inappropriate, wouldn't it? So thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to my colleagues that have been in the back room making this happen as well. Stay in touch, keep spreading this story. Thank you very much for your participation today. And good luck with all your carbon literacy training. Take care.